Welcome back to Origami. Oh, didn't see that coming. Sorry. Welcome back to Origami Snowman. My name is Matt. Is 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 Star Wars good? Like 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 there are good things about it, but is it actually good? This is. I don't want you to think that I'm just like some hot take naysayer. I love Star Wars. I have loved it most of my life. I have a Star Wars tattoo that I've had so long that it no longer looks like a Star Wars tattoo. It looks almost like a medical condition. So I mean, I've been around. I know my things. But yeah, like I feel like I'm gonna take one more stab at validating my opinion. My favorite Star Wars ship wasn't even in any of the movies. It was a Z95 Headhunter, specifically Salazen's Z95 Headhunter, because she actually managed to throw in a hyperdrive and a life support system. Because the original Z95 Headhunter didn't have either of those things. Oops, didn't have either of those things. It just had like all the power that normally would have gone to a hyperdrive or a life support system went to its sublight engine. So because it was used as primarily a patrol ship, an orbital patrol, whatever. I like Star Wars. Okay, but is it good? Okay, so you can say that the prequels ruined Star Wars, or you can say that the sequels ruined Star Wars. But let's go back to the original trilogy and take a look at it. Did anything ruin Star Wars, or is it just kind of bad? So yeah, like I remember in 1999 we were all so very very excited about Episode 1 coming out, and if you are a Gen Xer, then you will understand the emotion that I felt when I first saw Jar Jar Binks on screen. It was not a good emotion, you guys. And we thought, okay, you know what? They're rusty. They just had to kind of, okay. They will not do that to us again. And they didn't. They actually did it worse. And they gave us Attack of the Clones. And it was unforgivably bad. So much so that Revenge of the Sith, which might have actually been a pretty decent movie, it like they served it up to us when we were still reeling from the last beating we had gotten. So like no, nobody was interested. We were all very disappointed. It was terrible. It was just bad acting, bad story. George Lucas was convinced that no one was interested in anything but the special effects, which were not great. It was they were bad movies, you guys. So much so that I would argue that Episode 1 of the prequels was actually the best, because it was mostly a children's movie, and children's movie you gotta give it a pass because it's for kids, right? So that being said, fast forward to the sequels. They're also they suffer from pretty much the same thing. Not great acting, not great story. A lot of it's just recycled. It's problematic. Star Wars has a history of being problematic. So how did it get so big? So let's go back and look at 1977 Star Wars. We all called it Star Wars, and then when it got really big and they were like, we're going to make a bunch of these, we can't just call the first one Star Wars. That's going to be the whole franchise. So they retooled it. They gave it a new title. They gave it A New Hope, right? So if you go back and you watch that, if you've ever seen it, if you grew up with it like me, watch it through the lens of someone who's never seen it before. Watch it like you're watching it for the first time. It is not good. Regular Timmy 666 and I were talking about this tonight. It's just not. It's not good. It didn't it didn't it didn't know what it wanted to be. It knew how it wanted to look. That was fantastic. The world that George Lucas built is gritty and dirty, and it looks lived in, and there's a history, and he starts right in the middle, and that was great. There, it says at the beginning of the crawl, it says episode 4, and we're like, wait, what? It's there were 3 others. What is going on? And so you immediately you start out being like, all right, I understand that there are some things that I won't understand. Proceed nevertheless, right? And that was a really smart move. And he didn't waste a lot of time on unnecessary exposition. Like when they talk about Tusken Raiders, he doesn't explain what they are, just that how am I supposed to get out of this hole? I can't. Oh, there we go. Tusken Raiders. Oh, and then we see how Obi-Wan and Luke react to the Tusken Raiders, But we don't have to know what they are. We don't have to know what the Jawas are. They're just desert scavengers, That's all. They're salvagers. And you get the feeling that nobody likes dealing with them, but it's sort of a necessary evil. But nobody says that. It's just really cool how they piece together this pre-existing world, and we all just took it for granted. That being said, the movie's not great. The most dynamic character is a drug dealer. He's a drug smuggler, Han Solo. He's not a good guy. If you want to say, yeah, but he smuggled some whatever, blah, 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 blah. He smuggled whatever cargo Jabba needed him to smuggle. And if you're telling me that he didn't also move some individuals about who were not moving about of their own volition, he dealt in trafficking. At some point in time, he did. Now, I know in some of the novels it talks about how he refuses to do any of that and blah, 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 blah. Well, there comes a point where, he's too new to be able to make those calls. And so I'm sure he had to do some things he didn't agree with, but he did it nevertheless. So the best character in that movie is a pretty bad guy. Okay. And then all is said and done, it wasn't Han's idea to come back and save the day to help destroy the Death Star. He had his money. He was going to pay off Jabba, and he was getting his life back. But there was one individual who had input in that decision who got no credit. That was Chewbacca. Chewie was the one who turned that ship around, either through force of will or merely by peer pressure. But in the awards ceremony at the end, Chewie doesn't get a medal. No, he doesn't get a medal. So you got to wonder what kind of society are these rebels trying to reinstate? They're trying to bring back the old ways where we ignore the hardworking individuals just because they aren't human. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying. So yeah, Star Wars maybe isn't a great movie. Empire Strikes Back, fantastic movie because George Lucas didn't direct it. Irving Kershner directed it, and he knew what he was doing, and he made a great movie. Of course, then Return of the Jedi is one humongous commercial for Ewok toys, which I had lots of Ewok toys. As a kid, I loved Return of the Jedi. As an adult, it's hard. It is hard to watch. So, is Star Wars good? The movies might not be great. They might have some problems. But what about the novels? And I know they got decanonized or whatever, like when Disney sort of started, when they brought in the sequels, they said, oh, all those old novels and all that, none of it matters anymore. It's all, we're gonna rewrite the history of Star Wars. which is unfortunate because there was already so much good material to work with. So much good stuff. Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. Timothy Zahn created one of the greatest characters in Star Wars, Grand Admiral Thrawn. He was amazing. And his Thrawn trilogy, Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, was so. It is still, I think, many people would consider one of the greatest Star Wars trilogies ever. I mean, movies they can't hold a candle to the Thrawn trilogy. It's fantastic. It's he's this untouchable, unstoppable enemy. He is fearless. Like nothing escapes his attention. He thinks around every corner. He plans for every eventuality, and he's a genuine threat. Now they did put him in the Clone Wars, or they put him in one of the animated series, which I didn't see. And I know they're bringing him into, I want to say Ahsoka, which I didn't watch. But the novelized version of Grand Admiral Thrawn is incredible. He's so good. And by which I mean he's so bad. He's so very, I don't even know if he's evil. He's on the wrong side. We'll just say it that way. And he's a threat. And that is such a fun character. But that would have made a great movie, like a great trilogy. We all thought when they were redoing, when Disney said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna produce another trilogy," we all thought it was gonna be the Thrawn trilogy, until they said, "Oh no, actually, that's not even canon anymore." We wiped that right off of the record. That was hard. That hurt. And when Solo came out, a lot of people were upset that they didn't use A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy as like source material. It was a great trilogy. There's some problems with it. It's a little silly, but it's Star Wars. It should be silly. There are a lot of great novels, and I would say that the novels are obviously, their books are always better. You have the whole X-Wing series that follows Rogue Squadron. Wedge and Luke put together these amazing fighters, pilots, and it's just this whole series. It's just incredible, adventurous stories, very swashbuckly type stuff. Then there was a series called, oh gosh, was it the New Jedi Order? I can't remember. It's been such a long time. But it was really fascinating. There was a race of alien that came in from outside of the galaxy, and they were religious zealots who believed that technology was, an abomination, and they had found all natural ways of doing everything that the heroes could do with technology, but they could do without. And they were called the Yuzon Vong, and like they bred these creatures to basically act as starships, and they had these creatures called Dovin basils, I believe is what they were called. I can't remember. I'm telling you, it's been so long. But they could generate a singularity, and essentially they put these things on their quote unquote ships and use them to travel across vast expanses. But they also were able to use them as weapons, which, you create a tiny black hole and pull a moon out of its orbit and then release it so that it snaps back into orbit violently, and then all of a sudden it is now crashing down on the planet, which is how, in the novel Alpha Prime, the Yuzon Vong killed Chewbacca. Yeah, that happened in one of the novels, and it was devastating. And, Han and Leia were married, and they had 3 kids. They had Jason and Jaina, the twins, and then they had their youngest, Anakin Solo, who was, like everything that his grandfather could have been. So the novels, there was so much exciting and fun stuff. So yeah, I think in some ways Star Wars is freaking awesome. But if you didn't grow up with it like I did, I 100% understand if you think Star Wars is trash. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to tell you need to check it out. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. We tried watching them with my wife. She hated it. She couldn't get into it at all. At all. I don't think she's seen a single Star Wars movie all the way through. She still calls Jabba Pizza the Hut. She calls the Death Star the giant death ball. She calls Boba Fett Bubba Fat. And she does it particularly, I think, to annoy me. But I love her anyway. So, yeah, Star Wars is kind of trash. But I still love it. Anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. Love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.